Welcome to The Logic of Generosity, the podcast for bold nonprofit leaders who refuse to settle for ordinary. Here, we cut through the noise with unfiltered insights from fundraising experts designed to spark bigger gifts, deeper donor connections, and a brighter future for your mission. Let's dive in.
This episode was brought to you by Pleiades Nonprofit Advisors. Building a plan giving program can result in a transformative return on investment. Successful programs can be responsible for 40 to 60% of an organization's annual donation revenue. It's the getting there that becomes the problem. After having thousands of conversations with organizations aiming to run their gift planning programs, I have repeatedly seen many start their plan giving efforts with great enthusiasm and expense, only to stop a year into it due to a lack of both bandwidth as well as patience. At Pleiades Nonprofit Advisors, we don't just build planned giving programs, we create opportunities for your donors to do something remarkable. Whether you are a small nonprofit or a major player, we specialize in helping you unlock the full potential of planned giving. Recently, we received some helpful data that demonstrates the benefit of bringing Pleiades on board to work with your exceptional team. We have been a proud partner with Meals on Wheels of the Monterey Peninsula for the last year and a half. And since we began, we have grown our Legacy Society from 5 to 29 members, grown our portfolio from 15 to 111 solid prospects, and we've increased qualified charitable distributions from 20 to 47 gifts. From crafting visionary strategies for deferred estate gifts to sparking immediate impact with gifts of appreciated assets, we bring expert, award-winning talent to the table. Need more than marketing? We go deeper. We'll connect with your donors even directly, fostering meaningful conversations that lead to transformational gifts. Visit us today and let us build something extraordinary together. Links are in the show notes. This episode is brought to you by Stillwater Capital Management. Stillwater Capital Management is a full-service wealth management firm that takes pride in its goal-based financial planning, extensive market expertise, and exceptional customer service. They are dedicated to helping individuals, families, and for-profit and nonprofit businesses achieve their unique financial goals. Each of their client receives a personalized financial plan tailored to suit their individual needs. As a registered investment advisory company, Stillwater Capital Management holds a fiduciary responsibility to its clients, which means they provide investment advice that always keeps the client's best interest at heart. Tiffany is in the house. It is so good to see you, Tiffany, and I'm so glad that you were willing to let me just twist your arm in order to get on this podcast.
There wasn't any twisting needed. I'm happy to be here, Andy. Thank you so much for the invitation.
I'm glad that we were able to have dinner with you and Darren and the others from the Arizona Charitable Gift Planning Group. I've got to say, they're such a great group of people. And even though it was a fraction of people that we had at the dinner, it was just really cool to hear what each person is doing and how their shops are doing and what they're working on, and just kind of have it as such a sharing environment. Have you ever been in I guess in the gift planning space, have you ever been in a place where they just don't share as freely as they do?
I haven't seen that too much, but I have never seen anything as cordial as our group, and supportive and amazing. So Arizona Charitable Gift Planners has been awesome. And I'm now on the board of the National Charitable Gift Planners as
That's
well.
right. That's right. I remember hearing
Yeah.
about that.
And I've been amazed too. It's like amazing people who are out to support each other. We see each other much less frequently.
Right.
So there's not quite that, camaraderie that you feel every day. But the Arizona Charitable Gift Planner is amazing. And I used to be president of it.
I was going to
And
ask.
that board was amazing. Like there was never a contentious vote ever. Everybody always agreed.
I think that's so cool just because it's rather different than perhaps what the rest of the world is like.
Mhm.
And people seem to be just a little bit more of a rising tide floats all boats type of person. At least that seems to be the case from what I've seen. And it's definitely been the case with you, and it's been the case with Darren, your husband, and being able to, just watch you guys just continue to give the way that you've given. When, let me ask you this, when were you president of that particular council?
Great question. Before Judy Smith,
Okay, okay.
let's see, it was probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I did it for 2 years.
And you did it for your two. Okay. Well, yeah, no, Judy was really kind enough to say, Andy, come on my programming team and just, knowing that she would probably want a successor at some point in time. And of course, Kristen was that successor, and then now I'm in the place where I'm at. But I'm grateful to be able to be serving alongside of so many wonderful people in that space. So I have a more important question, and that's to talk about horses. I want to talk about horses, and not because I haven't had too many great experiences with horses outside of being dragged through the desert because I fell off one. Not that I'm bitter, and not that I'm sore from some of the stuff that happened way back when. But you have a little bit more of a favorable experience with horses. In fact, I think you own a cajillion of them, or at least four. So tell us about your horses and why, and how did you get into that?
Yeah, well, my horses are my real passion. I love the work that I do. I love gift planning, helping organizations. My true passion for work wise is working with wealthy people and helping them create this master plan. But above and beyond all that, what I'm even better at and what I love so much more is my horses. So my parents say that the love came from the womb, that they got their first horse when my mom was pregnant with me. And I made her gain the most weight out of all of the three children she birthed. And so she would sit around watching that horse in the pasture. And I have had the crazy horse bug ever since I was born. I guess I started competing nationally with Arabian horses when I was 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
When I was 15, I would be a groom at the horse shows, and I was an assistant trainer back at the barn. So I had a cot in because we'd make stalls into like there would be a dressing room where we would put, like a rug over the floor, and that's where people would change into their show outfits. Well, I had a little cot that would roll up in the corner, and that's where I slept for the majority of what was it, 3 or 4 summers of my life,
No
uh,
kidding.
going from one place to another. And after a little bit, though, my trainer started bringing, she also bred dogs. She brought her best trained dog to be with me
Yeah.
because I'd have to walk sometimes 10 to 15 minutes across fairgrounds that were empty to make it to the showers at like 10 o'clock at night. So I had my protector.
Okay. Oh, wow. So oh my goodness, you were completely exposed to this for much of your childhood. Now, if I remember right, you weren't raised in Arizona. Where were you raised?
I was raised in Minnesota,
Okay.
and we would come down here every year for the Arabian, or come down to Arizona every year for the Arabian Horse Show. And that's what actually got us to move down here. My parents and I moved at the same time. I went to U of A, and they had University of Arizona, and they had a place up in Scottsdale where they kept my horses. So I would come up most weekends to ride.
Okay. So you went down to U of A, and what were you studying down there?
Environmental science, hydrology, and geology.
Oh, so that completely ties into your profession as a gift planner. I can see it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it's so funny. I mean, the route is so circuitous for so many people. It's like nobody just says when they're growing up, I want to be a gift planner or a fundraiser. Nobody ever has said that. And yet, in many cases, people just kind of fit naturally into that role over time. And much like yourself, once people get the gift planning bug, they're like, okay, let's go, and they're really excited about it. And they really get into the space with great enthusiasm. So you're at U of A, you're doing climate research. Is that kind of the gist? And my son went to U of A. He was in the neuroscience lab there and decided that he did not like neuroscience after that experience, so went on to mathematics, which was much easier for him, I guess. Anyways, so that said, is your parents then moved down? You're in Scottsdale. You're probably traveling from Tucson to Scottsdale pretty routinely. It's a couple hour drive,
Yep.
and every chance you get, you're just riding horses and taking up
Mhm.
a cot now in the stable there, or maybe not. But
No, not by then the cat was gone.
okay,
I stopped cutting it by then.
fair enough. And so I'm looking at a little bit of background with you because maybe I did a little studying on it. That you are at Koocanusa Resort in Libby, Montana, or outside of Libby, over on Lake Koocanusa. And it's like I don't know how many hundreds of miles it is. The lake goes all the way from like mid-Montana, and it's kind of like this real strand of a lake, and then it goes north into the Canadian Rockies. So, what did you do there? And was that like a summer thing, or what was that all about?
Well, I came down to Arizona for my second year of college. When I came down here, my ex-husband also flew down to Arizona to meet with my dad because he bought a penny stock. I forget if it was 20 or 40,000 that he put into the stock. It soared to 1.5 million.
Oh, wow.
And actually, I was doing real research. I actually had a NASA grant internship at the time.
No kidding.
And well, maybe the next year I got the internship. And so he did a charitable remainder trust for about half of the assets with my
Wait,
father.
how old was
And
he?
then he was 29.
And he's doing a CRT at the age of 29?
He was able to do the CRT at the age of 29, and it has since dissolved. It did not last.
I was gonna
So,
say, I mean, most CRTs don't start that early.
yep.
I mean, how did he even find out about what a charitable remainder trust was?
From my father, my dad was a financial advisor, and his specialty was tax advantage planning, asset protection, with an overarching estate plan to guide it all.
I see. Now, how much was your dad influential in you? Evidently, there's some sort of redirection that's taking place between you going into climate science and getting a grant with NASA to discover more about climate science and moving into this world of financial planning. Is that what you
Mhm.
and now, so tell me how does one get to the other, and maybe how much did Dad influence that?
Well, Dad told me to bring up some nice clothes. There was a young man he wanted to introduce me to that weekend when I went up to ride. So he introduced me to Conrad. And then I did another year of school and kind of would go up to Montana and help him with the resort as he was buying it and other times. And then I decided to just stay up there. I tried to do some time at University of Montana in Missoula,
Yeah.
but so I was up there for 4.5 years running a resort. I was running a bar before it was legal to drink.
Only in Montana,
Yeah, we had
man.
70 acres, bar, store, restaurant, marina, full RV hookups, 55 of them, 9 rental cabins on 70 acres. And I have guided fishing and bird hunting before as well, too.
So I noticed that the lodge is still there. Of course,
Mhm.
I checked it out. And so how long did you guys own it then for?
So he owned it for about a little over 5 years, and I was there for about 4.5.
Okay. And were you doing most of the management?
Yeah, I was a little bit more talented at it than he was. He liked to go kind of do things with his hands. And so I ran everything except for I wouldn't tell the employees that I was doing their scheduling or managing them because I was so young, they didn't like me very
Sure, sure. Oh my
much.
goodness. Okay, so I mean, you're kind of like cutting your teeth in the entrepreneurial space. Was your dad entrepreneurial in nature? It
Mhm.
sounds like he probably was.
Oh, yes.
And here you are just kind of thrown into the midst of being up in Montana, which you're
Mhm.
not from, and being introduced to a part of the world that you've never been to, perhaps, I'm presuming. And
Mhm.
somehow, some way, it's like, okay, well, you know what? Here we go from Arizona up to Montana, and we're just going to make a go of it. And I'm just trying to think what that most people don't do that, Tiffany. I'm just here to let you know, is that most people don't feel that kind of level of freedom to just say, sure, why not, and just do it. Tell me, I mean, is that, what does that tell us about you personally?
I had never thought of it that way. And two, the hardest part was we were a half hour outside of a 5,000 person town.
Yeah.
So we were in the middle of nowhere. Our closest neighbor was 2 or 3 miles away. So I think the horses really helped. I almost didn't go to college because I wanted to be a professional horse trainer. And going and traveling for the 3 to 4 summers that I did, I think it was four, being on the road for most of the summer, living out of the barn, getting showers in, strange
Yeah.
places, made me adventurous. And I always have had a huge love for nature. And as an environmental scientist, going up to Montana, like, oh my gosh, like that's kind of the hub of where
Yeah,
you
that's
want to go do
Shangri-La, man.
research. And yeah, but going up there as a tree hugger and then realizing, wait a minute, none of this really works. We have to think of the people because it was a logging community. Logging was that town, and we
Yeah.
were 6 miles north of the dam, and there was a lot of policies and such that were being done that were affecting the environment. And so I really got to see it firsthand. So that might have had something to do with it. And my parents were nice enough where I knew if I wanted to go back to college, I had a safe place to land. So I could go spread my wings
Yeah.
and figure out my life and see what it is that I wanted to do. And they really wanted me with Conrad. They thought that, here, go marry this guy.
Okay, that's really interesting. It's funny because I've never been to Libby, but not too
Mhm.
far away from Libby is Sandpoint, Idaho.
Uh-huh.
And Sandpoint, Idaho, my dad had, I had lived in Spokane, Washington for many, many years, going to high school there and then going a little bit of college before I transferred. But I am kind of fascinated just by the connection. The area is very similar feeling just in terms of
Mhm.
forests and Rockies and mountains and very similar climates as well.
Yeah.
But it's Libby's pretty remote, and you're pretty remote from Libby, which now means that boy, relationally, things either click or or they don't, and and it kind of grows you up in a way to where it's like, oh boy, this is something I've got to figure out about myself and figure out about how to make the relationship work and all that sort of thing. So I'd imagine it was a bit of a testing ground that way. Uh,
Yeah, I honestly, I was just all feed in. I'm like, let's get this done. I have that type of work ethic where something needs to get done, let's just do it. And
yeah.
so yeah, I just kind of put my feet to the pavement. I did go down to Arizona and get a horse and brought a horse up there with me, and then we bought my ex-husband a horse too. So I did have horses up there too.
Okay. So today you do not work with forgive me,
Arabians.
Arabians. You work with Andalusian horses.
Yes,
Did I get that right?
you
So we have
did.
gone from mid-continent to Spain. Is that where we're at? And
Yeah.
tell me how you got into Andalusian horses and what's the connection there?
Well, I was all about everything horse. I always felt a more of a connection with the horse probably than I did even people. It
Sure.
might be surprising, but my happy place is with my animals. That's why I have so many. And so Arabians are good. They're very high spirited, and that industry is oversaturated. And illusions. So I got to kind of play around with a bunch of different breeds and different things. And what's cool about Andalusians is they are the most intelligent without being hyperactive. They're thoughtful, they think things through, and athletically, they're one of the best. So they are, in my opinion, the best horse to own. The Spaniards actually used to gift royalty their stallions to ride to war. So, like, you'll see, like, Napoleon, he rode a white stallion that Spain gave to him. And so this is known as the noble breed, where they are the way they connect with you is just absolutely amazing. And they have a heart of gold. They'll
Hmm.
try anything to help you as long as you're asking nicely.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And so you've been training Andalusian horses for some time then.
Probably 15 years.
Okay. Well, I love it, and I love thank you for sharing some of your photos with me. Just you training and of your horses, your golden horse is like, sorry, that was a bit breathtaking. I wasn't even sure. It's like, I'm kind of colorblind, and so that probably doesn't help matters, but it's like, is that horse gold? And it kind of is, and it's a beautiful, beautiful horse. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so like I said, I don't have a great experience with horses, but what you're describing and just watching you work through the training of them just speaks of a dedication. I think that you have to have a persistence, that consistency, figuring out how to help a horse kind of get over maybe some of its things that it needs to unlearn. And I imagine unlearning how a horse, or, I guess they term it breaking a horse, is not the easiest thing to do, I would imagine. But once they've gotten to the place where they trust you well enough and they're disciplined well enough by you in a loving way, then they seem to be responsive.
Yes, definitely. So, my most advanced horse, I was the first one to ride him, and no other trainer's been on his back. My kids have ridden him a couple of times. I've let a friend get on him, but I don't really do that anymore because he's trained to do piaffe and passage, which is very advanced maneuvers that you see like in the Olympic Games when they do dressage. He can do all of those movements, just not as perfect as they do them. But we ride classical Spanish. And so I have been able to bring him to that level. I have a trainer that I work with who I do clinics and do lessons with. I just did a clinic last weekend. It was called Musical Artistry, where we try to create exhibitions and like but maybe find a story in the music and try and put it through when you're riding and then riding with the music and beat with the music and with the transitions. So it was a really fun clinic and I love doing that stuff.
I love it. I feel like I meet the like most fascinating people because yeah, here they're like side lives, and then you discover, no, that's really my life, and I got to do this work thing too. But at the same time, I think that you've been doing some amazing work in the workspace as well that truly does reflect that work ethic that you speak of. And I would love to just kind of move in the direction of learning why it is that you became a financial planner and how long were you doing it? Where were you being educated at that? What were you working on? And then I want to get into our gift planning space, how you got there, but more specifically, I want to get into complex gifts and I want to talk about that. So let's start of that transition to being a financial planner and then how you went from there.
So in high school, I always had at least two jobs. One of them was working out at the barn training horses. And I also worked for my father for the last 3 years of high school. So he was a financial advisor working with ultra high net worth individuals with very complex situations. And he wanted me to take over the family business. And I kind of said, screw you, Dad. I want to go be an environmental science major. I'm never going to work with
Every
you.
every every 19-year-old says that.
So then when my ex-husband and I sold our resort, he said, "Well, you don't want to take over the family business. What would you think if I talked to your dad about that?" So we moved back to Arizona around the year 2000, and we both started working with my dad. I was in more of a support role, and my ex-husband got his licensing in that. And then I started having kids. So I had three daughters. 2 years apart, and then another uh, uh, 3.5 years after that. But so I started in that capacity of supporting my father, and I would handle all of the I'm a math geek. I
Okay.
love the numbers. I love, graphing things out and doing all of that stuff. So I did all the case design. And so I started my career doing the case design for very high net worth individuals with very complex scenarios really is how I learned and then was became a financial advisor. But we used a lot of charitable trusts. When I was with my dad, I think we did over 30.
No kidding.
I think I'm 40, 45-ish, probably. I should probably take the time to count them. But I was not a salesperson. I did not like going out and trying to get clients to come in and have me manage their money for them. And it wasn't honestly really what I was good at. I was good at the planning part of it. So I left my dad's practice. It was time. There was family dynamics going on and all of that. So I left my father's practice. I tried to go to a bank for a year, utter failure. I've never had to, like I've been an entrepreneur my whole life.
Yeah, I get it.
I and I tried to go on my own, but it was really hard to attract the high net worth clientele that I wanted to work with. So in 2020, I gave up all my licensing. And prior to that, when I still was an advisor, I started my company, Gift Planning Institute, to
Yeah.
help nonprofits ask for and accept complex asset gifts. And then I went ahead and gave up my licensing, started my other business, tax and estate strategy, where I work with wealthy individuals. And that's where my fun part is. Like I love helping nonprofits with their planned giving program, but what I really want is the donor meeting or the client meetings where these people have really complex scenarios or they want to do a really impactful gift, and I can help them find the right assets to accomplish that.
Okay. Yes, I'm going to want to get down into the mud here. Before I do, though, you said something that struck me as a bit odd, as your dad is a financial planner and he's talking people into the charitable remainder trust world. And so, and you said yourself that you would create like the case. And can you kind of share a little bit more about what that involved?
Yeah, well, charitable remainder trust was one of his favorite tools because really, when you look at it, if your tax savings, you keep that money working for you, you're going to end up ahead if you live to life expectancy by keeping your money from the IRS. And it provides asset protection and that. So that was just one tool in the multitude of strategies that we worked with, but it was the most relevant or prevalent charitable tool. So it was taking a look at somebody's assets, where things are, and then really being able to determine which assets are going to go where. And looking at charitable trust, looking at dynasty trust, looking at other ways to be able to pass on assets, grant to retained trusts, potentially defective trusts. So a lot of different trust work, but the charitable trust was usually the CRT.
It's a very versatile sort of instrument. And you said that your dad had at any given time, like, or that you've worked on, I guess, at any given time, about 45 trusts.
Mhm.
I would just say that in our space, the majority of financial advisors really aren't touching any of this. It's just not their space. You know, they're
Right.
looking to manage assets, and that's kind of where they want to be. But I think that because, and maybe it's because your dad was working with a lot of high net worth individuals who were dealing with a windfall of income and trying to figure out what to do with those taxes related to those windfall, that, routine windfall of income, that charitable directions were going to be something of value to them. So
Yep.
I want to go to the types of conversations that you have, but I suspect that your dad had with clients that to consider even working with a CRT and even why they would even go that direction, because philanthropy does kind of play a role beyond the taxes, for a CRT, and I'd be curious to see how that integrated with his approach to sell somebody on it.
Yeah, so when it came to charitable remainder trust or other things, that was just one tool. So there was a lot of other complex stuff that we were working on with these people. My father, the more complex it was, the more he liked it. So he didn't like doing just average strategy type of stuff. And all of our clients had estate tax issues, pretty much over the 20 million range. We had clients up to 750 million where we did some huge oil and gas deals and some other big concepts. And these people brought us in to really do the overarching plan. So the CRT was probably the easiest sell of anything inside of there,
Sure.
because when you can lay out the numbers and show people that they keep their money working for them versus going to the IRS, that it is a win-win for everyone. And I have to say, so I also work with business owners who are transitioning their business, and not all the time is that charitable. There's only two clients that I have worked with thus far. One was an internal transfer, and one was looking at an outright sale versus an ESOP.
Hmm.
Uh, where we did not do something charitable. Because the reality is the business owner communities, particularly, they're very charitably inclined.
Hmm.
I think it's because they were likely mentored at some point in time in their life. They've been an entrepreneur. They see these values of philanthropy as important. And so they all have a tendency to want to give. And then I think that other people who have significant wealth, realize after about the, $40 million range that, I might as well give some of this back to charity. How much do my kids really need? How much is too much to leave to my children?
Right.
And it can help them create their legacies. So having the charitable conversation with these people was extremely easy. It was a foundation of what we did and still what I do, of course, because people do want to consider their legacy. They do want to give back.
That's a really good point. There's so many different directions I want to go with my question here right now, so I'm just trying to just jog my mind to figure out the best direction. One of the things that I wanted to chat with is the idea of moving into the space where somebody is where a charitable remainder unit trust, for example, would be a reasonable thing for somebody to do and
Mhm.
recognize that this is a direction that you probably should go. And by the way, did you guys manage trusts at all, or were you doing that side as well as actually, taking care of the trustee role?
We were not trustee. All of our clients maintained trustee. We managed the assets.
I see. I see.
And then we would hire administrators. Some of our CPAs that worked with our clients felt confident enough to file the tax returns. So we did not, all of our clients had CRT administrators. We kind of helped with that role a little bit.
Okay.
And yeah, so it was really the clients who got to drive. And what I think is missing for so many financial advisors, a charitable remainder trust is the perfect tool to get more assets under management. You
Hmm.
get to put in business interest and now
Yeah.
take an illiquid asset, and now they have more AUM, assets under management, or diversify real estate or other components as well too, that they're missing the boat on building their book of business to be able to help their clients not only diversify, but diversify in ways that can allow them to help them get more assets under management, I guess, manage their money
Right.
for them. And I think that was kind of the precipice for my dad to really look at these, is realizing We get to help people with liquidation events keep more money. We get to also manage more money.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So if you're putting them into the trust, then guess what? They have to be managed. They have to be reinvested. And
Mhm.
so somebody's got to do something with it. And of course, what a brilliant point that is to make sure that financial advisors to motivate them. And it sounds like that was motivation for your dad to say, "Oh
Mhm.
my goodness, you know what? If they are going in this route, then that's more management money that we're able to take care of." So that makes a total sense there.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's very sticky. Like if you have a charitable remainder trust, you're probably not going to change financial advisors, midway through. Your advisor was the one who told you about it, who helped
right.
you walk through it. So, yeah,
And here I think what I hear you saying as well is as a financial advisor, even getting into the space opens up a repertoire of options for donors or for their clients that would otherwise never have been there. And I just think that that this part here, especially and if I'm a financial advisor, I should be racing towards understanding this, but most don't, and I don't know why. Any thought on that?
well, I think one thing that happens in this light, I will say too, at least in Arizona, a lot of attorneys haven't done much with this either. A
Right.
lot of financial advisors haven't. So I think what happens, because when I look at all the different retirement asset rules, I don't remember any of those anymore. And there's a lot to be thoughtful of when you are a financial advisor. There's a lot you're giving to your client. There's, tax advice. There's obviously the assets under management, but especially the certified financial planners are really looking at a holistic perspective. Throwing in there a charitable remainder trust or other tools isn't necessarily their specialty or in their wheelhouse or something that they've been educated on. And
Hmm.
there's so much that they are focusing on when it comes to the financial well being of their client. I can understand that that could be a stretch.
Yeah.
And then I think for attorneys, they don't get a lot of requests to draft these kind of documents. And then they're going to have to go back and do research to, look and see because they're not playing in it every day. So they don't recommend it either. And it's really kind of laziness, I think, of not knowing enough information about it and not wanting to sound stupid in front of your clients.
Okay. Yeah. But it does open up a conversation that I think that this is probably maybe an area for gift officers who are in that particular space because if nobody else is talking about it, one of the biggest mistakes that I hear is, oh, just go talk to your advisor and you can figure it out. Oh, no, maybe probably not a good idea, especially if your advisors know nothing about the area of philanthropy, which seems to be the case in a lot of places.
I would
So,
say 75% of the time, the advisors really have no idea. It
right.
took me like six different attorneys to flip through in Houston to help me with a $35 million client that wants to do some more advanced planning. And part of it is a CRT for business interests that he's going to be selling next year. And the attorneys there just wanted to do a revocable living trust or maybe some other trusts in there to like have protection, but not looking at a CRT, not looking at a spousal lifetime access trust, not looking at the estate tax component of it. And there's even one attorney that's local here that does charitable lead trusts all day every day, but he doesn't look at any of the other tools or strategies too. So I think the problem is there's nobody out there focusing on the entirety of the client's perspective, situation, morals and values, all of that. The financial advisor needs to be doing the finance work. The CPA needs to be doing the taxes. The attorney drafts the documents,
Mhm.
but who's looking at all of it and really kind of having that overarching plan that incorporates all of those pieces?
It's the one thing that seems to be missing is that philanthropic advisor connection. And
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, and I'm thinking, you just talked about it. It's like each one has got kind of their compartment of how they operate, the attorney, the financial advisor, the CPA, whatnot. But what doesn't seem to be routinely talked about by maybe our professional advisor side, and I know there are plenty of exceptions of people who do, so they're out there, just got to find them, but is going to be that philanthropic discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we can talk about finances, but is it very possible that philanthropy has a significant role in that financial conversation? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, okay, Tiffany, this is our space. This is where we roll. We're providing a fair amount of education not only to our donors, but we're also trying to provide a fair amount of education to our advisors, our professional
Mm-hmm.
advisors, to understand how to even broach all of this. And so we have so many different directions that we can go. Plus, by the way, we got to do our jobs, whatever our jobs might be. And it seems to be a bit insurmountable. Help me. How do I figure this out in order to take a strategy, and that strategy then moves to tactical decision making to be able to tackle this? Because I think you're right. I think it's a huge issue, and that there are ways that we have to do a really good job of just directing people to consider their philanthropic goals, or to have their clients consider their philanthropic goals.
Yeah, how do you get that done? It can be very difficult. You need to kind of have that quarterback to bring everybody together. Now, the quarterback could be the financial advisor, it could be the attorney, it could be the nonprofit development officer. It's not usually going to be your CPA because they're too busy looking in the rearview mirror. And a third less people are sitting for their CPA exam. They're overworked. The tax code's changing all the time. They've got to know all this information. So having that person to really kind of look and quarterback so that is what I do. I'm
Yeah,
that quarterback. I'm the one who's going to say, okay, let's look at your 12 different assets that you have in your life. Let's put them together in a master game plan that's going to help you with tax efficiency, creating your legacy, passing on morals and values, and having asset protection as well too. And I'm the only person I've ever met like me, and I know the reason, well, I don't know fully the reason why, but everybody else gets paid more than me. So, like there's not a lot of motivation. I'm lucky that I get to do this because I love it and my husband supports me. And I mean, some days though, I could make more money out training horses than I
right.
do, all the work that I do for gift planning and helping these families. I do know of a few people who are out there that will act as quarterback and have a lot of knowledge, but a lot of them are the financial advisors and they want the assets under management. And that spooks a lot of people away, that they feel like they're being sold on things.
Yeah. And I think that that's part of one of the challenges that gift planners experience as well, because they're represented organizations and maybe they're given quotas in their own right. And that expectation, depending on where the organization has some level of expectation, they're going to have expectation, but in terms of quota and as far as how much money you're bringing in and all the metrics, of course, we understand gift planning metrics are a little bit unique, but um, I guess the potential of them seem like they're salesmen more than they are fiduciaries, more
Hmm.
than they are really seeking out donor best interest, which has been kind of a little bit my hobby horse that I'm trying to ride for, pun completely intended, that I'm trying to figure out how to help the nonprofit side begin to see themselves as something more than a fundraiser who is simply just trying to bring in money for the organization. Because I do think, just to your point, it's like people are not going to be paid because they're pursuing this holistic sort of approach, but they're going to get paid wherever the system rewards them, whether it
Yeah.
be assets under management or drafting trust or drafting, doing the attorney work or financial planner work and that sort of thing. And yet at the same time, I think you're onto something so critical to be able to see the need of a holistic point of view, what individuals have towards seeing what assets they have can actually go to work for them. maybe
Mm.
in a way to earn more assets or in a way to be more philanthropic.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem to be something that too many people are weighing into. So I'm wondering, is the goal then to train more gift planners to be able to raise them up to where they can be a little bit more confident in this particular space so as to begin to move from the mindset of fundraiser to philanthropy advisor? What are your thoughts?
I think that, like all good things and ways that attorneys respond to everything, is it depends. I think sometimes the nonprofit community really just needs to start the conversation and let them know that there's possibilities like giving from your IRA, or, oh, you have a capital gains asset. Have you ever considered something like this? Let's go talk to your advisors. I think that they need to be confident enough just to start the conversation and then find the right resources to bring in to help accomplish the gift. So, um, one thing that I feel, so I'll kind of, I guess, a plug for myself. Um, when people are talking about their wealth, they necessarily don't want to open up and say, oh, you know what? I have $500,000 in my
Right.
IRA. I have this $3 million home over here.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about selling this, but my kids love this house. What do I do? That type of stuff. They're not going to open up to the big picture. And so it's very hard for gift planning officers to be able to see all the different opportunities that there would be to create some of this good planning. So I think that the advisors need to be involved. So I think gift planners they don't have to be perfectly educated. They don't need to know all the ins and outs. They don't need to know everything, but they do need to have advisors who know what they're doing on their Rolodex that they can bring in. Because another fallacy that I see all the time is, I'd say over half of my clients on the tax and estate strategy side have no advisors or maybe just one,
Yep.
and they're getting bad advice.
Yep.
And some of them don't even want to have advisors. Probably three of my top four, my four top clients do not have, one of them has somebody managing their money, but they're pissed at them because they set up UGMA accounts, which is accounts for minors for gifting to the grandchildren. And
Okay.
then when they turned 18, or was it 21, they get the assets. And he thought it was put into a trust. But there's just an opportunity out there, I think, for development officers to create that community around them where they can be supported. And also, so I had a nonprofit come to me, a development officer, and this guy came to me and he said, you know what, Tiffany, I just had this guy, he's given $25,000. He's never given anything more, just one random $25,000 gift. But I think there's a lot more. And I'm talking to him, we're texting, all that kind of stuff, but I don't think he's going to open up to me. I think he'll open up to you. So I met with the guy. I always do introductory meetings for free. I met with a guy, and in the first meeting, which lasted nearly 2 hours, he ended up about, three-quarters of the way through letting me know that he's worth over 60 million.
Okay.
And then in our and then in our next meeting, he was telling me where the assets are. I added up, we're 69 million and probably more because some of these, assets are growing really fast. So I was able to, have that conversation with him. And I'm in the weeds with him right now because we're helping this gentleman. So he decided, he's like, yes, I'm going to hire you. So he hired me on his own. Nonprofit hasn't had to pay a darn thing for me. He decided that it's good to have a quarterback like me on his team. And he's the one who was pissed about the UGMA accounts.
Yeah.
And he's got, a wife with a prenup. They've only been married 4 years. He doesn't want to leave her any part of the estate, but he wants to leave her income. He also wants to use her estate tax exemption. So we're looking at doing a Q-tip trust for her.
Yeah.
We're also looking to make the actual grandkids to get trusts so that he can do annual gifting to each of them and get as much out of this for estate tax purposes. He's got another investment that's going to go public. They might do a round of funding, but it's probably going to go public in the next 2 to 3 years. And so we're going to gift those assets using his exemption to his kids because they're going to grow in value a lot. And that's more that'll be outside of the estate for estate tax purposes. And on top, he said, you know what? I want to give 20% of my estate to charity.
That's awesome.
So there's no way that development officer would have been able to have that conversation the way that I was able to. And sure, he might have gotten him to leave a gift in his will or trust. That might have been something. But this guy, it doesn't have an estate plan that includes this new wife. He, needs all this planning. So we've got to do a dynasty trust. We've got so much moving right now with this client that after we get that kind of all settled, there's some like 3 or 4 main priorities that need to be done in this tax year. After that, it's gonna be like, okay, well, 20% is great, but what about now? Let's see some of your philanthropy come out. And he does have a donor advice fund right now, but I'm encouraging him to include the grandkids and doing some other stuff where he's actually going to get the more philanthropic dollars out in the community. And, that's a unique place where I get to be. And I just don't think that enough development officers really get that their donors probably don't want to tell them their deep financial secrets, that their family dynamics. I mean, I did a charitable remainder trust for a dermatology practice, and they had 3 sons, and they're like, we would leave the oldest son out of the estate plan if we could. There's literally something called Shoegate that they went through with him, and he's no longer invited to Christmas or anything like that. They said, we want to leave him out of the estate, but we can't. He's an attorney and he's going to spend, once we die, he's just going to sue his brothers to try and get a third. And we don't want the brothers have to go through that. So in the charitable remainder trust, we went ahead and had the couple receive income for life and added a term of 20 years for the 2 favored sons.
Okay.
So, like some people don't always open up about those types of things. And I feel that being a person who has complete confidentiality. I don't go running to the charity and say, oh my gosh, all this is happening. But I did tell that development officer that we were just talking about that I looks like he's going to leave you in his estate plans. We got some other planning to do. I'll let you know more and I'll, try to get him to open up to you about it more.
So you raise up a number of great points in this, and I think that what I'm trying to figure out is how to bridge our gift officers with who may not necessarily be able to get into that space where a donor is confiding in them about all of their financials and where their income streams are coming and where this all goes and what they would like to accomplish. Just because maybe in the back of the donor's mind, this person's got a gift in his mind for his own organization, and maybe that's kind of a conflict of interest from the donor's perspective.
And the
Uh,
sad fact that what like development officers transition positions, what, every 18 months or something like that,
yeah,
there's been that inconsistency within the industry. I will say, from what I've seen, plan giving officers stay much longer than the average development officer.
they do.
So maybe it's a bit less. But that person is being hired by that nonprofit to accomplish a gift to that nonprofit. So, that is something that donors might be considering.
I think it would be good to give a shout out to you for how a nonprofit can engage you, but I also want to hear about how you would encourage a gift officer to begin to dabble into this area that sends them the flag that says, hey, you know what? We should get Tiffany involved. And the reason why is because she's going to be able to unlock something that, would have never been there. Case in point, your $69 million guy
Mhm.
who only was known by a $25,000 gift. Generous, but not in comparison to what he has. So tell me a little bit, first of all, how a nonprofit and why they should hire you, but also that you like to work particular with clients themselves and directly, just because they're high net worth individuals. But so tell me a little bit about that, and then I want to get to the gift planning dialogue and bridge as well.
Yeah, so to work with me, I can help develop or enhance plan giving programs. I've got lots of materials. I have a lot of promotions. I create brochures that I stagger in a folder and try and make the difficult strategies easy to understand. I have my cheat sheets and I'm always trying to make it accessible. But I think what nonprofits are really missing out on is just introducing me to a donor that they feel has something more to give. And I meet with them free, and 9 times out of 10, the donor pays my fee. I had a hospital system hire me to meet with their executive director. They paid my fee for this. They'd heard about my skills and they're like, our executive director gives like 125,000 a year and we've got this huge campaign. We're going to put in a new building and we'd love for you to meet with him. So I met with him and he let me know, he's like, actually, I'm really pissed at the organization that just bought us. And I'm not excited about this project because it's been in the works for 3 years and we've made no progress. And Tiffany, I'm going to be retiring next year. He's like, my 125 is probably going to go down to zero. And I probably won't start back up until I reach 70 and a half, which is about 4 or 5 years from now. I'm like, okay, well, that sounds great. Nonprofit's not going to be very happy with me because this guy
Right,
just didn't
right,
want
right,
to give.
right.
But he couldn't tell his development officer any of that, especially about his retirement.
Nope.
So, and he didn't want to, disrupt the culture either,
Sure.
like by letting him know that his opinions about some of these things
Yeah,
going
that's
on.
right. May it affect the vision and the direction of the organization? Absolutely.
Yeah. So I met with him and his wife a few times, and we should have gotten things going a little faster, but I ended up talking them into doing a $500,000 donor advised fund.
Okay.
And I said, okay, you know what? Here's the thing. You're going to be in your highest tax year for the rest of your life this year. Let's make a gift that you can put into your donor advised fund and let's pre-fund your philanthropy until you turn 70 and a half. How much do you want to give between, those 4 to 5 years? And they said, okay, 500,000 seems about right. So on December 27th, we put together a donor advised fund. I think they had a financial advisor at like Morgan Stanley or Merrill Lynch, I forget. And they're like, oh no, we don't do donor advised funds after December 1st or something along those lines. And I reached out to their local community foundation and they said,
Yep.
sure, yeah,
Yeah,
we'll do
absolutely.
it. And then when they saw who the donor was, they're like, oh my gosh, he's such a great, outstanding member of our community. He gives to all these other organizations too. So the community foundation is lit up that they
Yeah, of
have him.
course.
And then guess what happened? He actually went back and gave a larger gift even after retirement.
I was going to ask, have you ever just found that people who start becoming philanthropic because they maybe get a rush out of it, maybe just because, it's like, look, it's either the IRS or charity, and they kind of make that decision. And
Yeah.
then they do it and they go, I like that. Do you ever get people who kind of like get thrust into philanthropy, not because they were searching it out, but because it just like happened upon them out of necessity, and they go, huh, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, I've got to say that probably about 5 to 8 of the charitable remainder trusts that I worked on, the people weren't originally very charitably inclined.
Yeah.
And when we showed them the numbers, they said, okay, we could give to charity to have this come to fruition. And they definitely became more charitably inclined. And Dr. Russell James does have a
Yeah.
study that says when people decide to leave a gift in their legacy plans, that their annual gifting more than doubles.
That's right. Yeah. And in fact, I have it, and I think Judy called it the tattoo slide. Basically, that somebody who leaves, especially like bequest giving, and then their annual giving goes up by $3,000 plus each and every year thereafter. And so it's like, oh, that's kind of a nice surprise. But I think it also speaks to something that I've heard this over and over and over. No, people give because they're really sold on mission. There are some exceptions. And people give because you know what? The alternative is the government, and they'd rather not give to the government.
Mhm.
And it's like, oh, well, if the incentives are large enough to where like, you know what, becoming philanthropic, and actually I do like these organizations. I do like what they're doing. Oh, that's a good cause. That, it's not like they're devoid of philanthropy altogether. It's just that they really haven't made an emphasis on it in their lives. And now, because kind of they're forced to make a decision to take the IRS road versus philanthropy, they're, well, philanthropy, 99% of the time. It's like, why wouldn't I go that route?
Yeah.
So I would imagine you probably have seen a number of donors begin to just get the light switch on, just saying, oh, I think I'll become a donor. You know?
Mhm. Well, and one thing I would love to switch the light on for my new $69 million client is how much is too much to leave to his kids and grandkids.
Yeah.
And he's already said, I don't know that I really care about my great grandkids. I don't even know who they are and what are they going to be like and this and that. And I can
Yeah.
definitely see that. But money can spoil people as well. So I believe I like to say that when somebody leaves a gift, so my husband and I have 10% of our estate going to charity. And when we sat our three kids down and we said, okay, girls, instead of 33 and a third percent, you're
Yep.
each going to get 30%, 10% is going to charity. They're like, oh, yeah, of course. We know how charitable you are. That, makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And they know that those are our morals and values. The 3% doesn't
Yeah.
matter to
And they're
them.
not going to even flinch at 3%. And
No.
and we had the same thing. We did a 30, 30, 30, 10. And I have one daughter, which I said, you're the 10. No, I tease.
You're my charity.
But no, but in all seriousness, I mean, it's not a percent, a 2, 3, 4, 5%, 10% is not all that much. And a lot of people are thinking, that might be a very workable solution, even for those not ultra high net worth people who are sitting on a $2 or $3 million estate, and they're thinking the same exact thing. It's like, why in the world would I not consider to be philanthropic? I just have never thought about it because I'm not going to be
Yeah.
around to see it, and I don't really. And it's a potential opportunity for really engaging in a way that you'd never engaged before, as well as
Yeah,
passing along those values to your kids.
totally. And two, you have a bad day, you can wake up and you can be like, yeah, but I got 10% of my estate going to charity. I feel pretty darn good about that. Like I'm committed to making good happen in the community around me. I really like to share that with people that when they make a legacy gift, they get to live into that gift every day.
I like that, which would make sense that their annual giving goes up because they're far more vested because they live into that gift more.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't have too much time, believe it or not. Our hour is actually about
It
done.
went really fast.
I did. One of the things that I would like to ask is obviously we want gift planners to search you out. We also want donors or clients and financial advisors to search you out, just for the fact that you have a very unique sort of niche in this whole space, and trying to figure out how philanthropy intersects with financial prosperity and estate planning. That said, is I think that a lot of gift officers are, there's some incredibly savvy. They're very knowledgeable. They know what they're doing. However, there's a number who might be newer to the space and don't feel too comfortable in beginning to now move into that space with a donor. In part because a donor won't give them the time of day, but then there's going to be some who are super relational and very good at what they do, just it's to get into the connection with their donors without feeling like they're being pressured or without overwhelming them or without, kind of having that hidden agenda or whatever. So I think that there are going to be some gift officers out there who might benefit from you sharing with them as to how to entertain and move into that conversation with a donor. Are there some suggestions that you have for them?
Yeah, so one is start with low-hanging fruit. Have a conversation with somebody who's given cash and just say to them, for one, relate to themselves. So many of our donors, like you, give stock gifts instead of cash gifts. Have you ever considered a cash gift?
Or a stock
Uh,
gift? Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Did I mix that up? Sorry. But yeah, just finding those easy ways. I always start with thanking them
Yeah.
Whenever I'm having a donor conversation, I want to get the oxytocin, the love connection hormone going in their brain. And so I will ask them to tell stories about themselves. Because when you tell stories about yourself and when you give gifts to charity, Dr. Russell James did a study on this,
Yeah.
oxytocin's released in the brain. So a lot of it is just having those great relationships with the clients, getting to know them, thanking them, letting them know that you're there because they're such a generous donor that you're there to enhance the relationship. And as you get to know them and they share things, you can find bridges to things in your mission where they might, or your programs where, oh, well, this program really seems to be aligned with your past history with this. Have you ever considered a gift? The way that I start my donor conversations, and maybe you're asking a little bit more how to start the conversation, but I get them talking about themselves for at least 3/4 of the meeting. And then I'll usually share with myself. I decided to leave a gift in my estate and I sat my three daughters down. We already did that. And then have you ever considered that? And it's really like planned giving is such an easy ask.
It
Like
is.
major gifts might be hard. I've never done that. But planned giving is just helping them find the opportunity to enhance their legacy or find a more tax efficient way to give or help them support the causes that matter to them or pass on their morals and values.
Yeah, I like that. One of the questions that I encourage folks to ask is not only just getting on the phone and being able to just say, "Hey, I wanted to say thank you." And what we'll do is we'll take those who are showing interest analytically, and then on our messaging, and then we'll take those individuals and they have any sort of history. And of course, we understand a lot of estate gifts come from people who don't have any history with our organization, so there's that. But for those who do, those are the people that we can find, then I'll just kind of now start working through a crosshatch approach. And it's like, okay, here's people showing interest with some of our messaging. And then here are individuals who have had some sort of connection with giving to our organization. So that is going to be a phone call. And in that phone call, I introduce myself and I ask, hey, has anybody called you before from us? First of all, let me apologize. I am so sorry that you haven't heard from us sooner, but I just wanted to call and say thank you. But I have a follow-up question for you. Why? Why do you give to us? Why are we important to you? I want to hear how it is that you got involved with us. And so to the place to where you're now supporting us on a regular basis. And from there, I then follow up with a simple question. Hey, by the way, do you normally give through a checkbook? Or do you like write a check from your IRA? Or did you give from a donor advised fund? Or how do you choose to give? And just by asking that, it's like, well, I just give a cash gift. Oh, I don't know. Did you know? And then explore a couple of options just with the current gifts of assets and having the conversation just with the way that they're approaching that. And it's like, I don't know if you know this, but there are some solutions out there that you might not be aware of that might be available to you to be able to actually give in a way that's far less expensive for you to give. And
Yeah.
if you have an interest, I mean, happy to help with you and chat with you on that. And then I'll let you know who Tiffany is, and we'll make sure we introduce you. Anyways,
Well, and kind of to that point too, like what are the easiest ways for a someone who might be a little uncomfortable with these conversations to start them? Ask for testimonials because you're going to
yeah,
get the oxytocin going,
yeah,
right? They're
that's
going to be
right.
thinking about their gift. They're going to be talking about themselves.
Yeah,
They might even give another gift. And then you can use it on your website or marketing materials. So asking for testimonials is an awesome way to, kind of start that stewardship. Two of my other favorite things are if you're kind of new at it, go to one of your favorite donors, board members, what have you, ask them if you can have a practice conversation. I'm really getting into this plan giving space, but I really want to make sure that I'm not offending anyone and that I'm doing it appropriately. Can I have a practice conversation with you? And you're having a straight out conversation with them about their
yeah,
giving, about, asking them what they feel like they're giving you advice
you're
versus they're
right.
being ask for a gift. I mean, that's a great way. And then
I
the third
love it.
is,
This is my
you know,
83rd time talking and doing a practice run.
yeah, exactly. I mean, 200 practice.
Yeah,
Why
right.
not? And then like inviting them to be part of the Legacy Society or enhancing the Legacy Society or something, being an inaugural member or something along those lines. Because th those are just easy conversations that turn into plan giving conversations.
Tiffany, how do people get a hold of you and how do they connect with you?
Yeah. My email is Tiffany at giftplanninginstitute.com or Tiffany at tax-estate, estate.com. And I speak nationally. I love educating professional advisors. That's my favorite thing to do. I make it fun for them. Actually, guess where I get to tomorrow I'm doing training for UC Davis development officers
I
in
love it.
California.
Say hi to
And then
Peter and Adie and
yeah,
and the folks.
I will. And then on Thursday, I'm speaking at the Sacramento Estate Planning Council.
Oh yeah.
And gift planners don't know who Sam Donaldson is, but he's like Russell James in estate planning. So, or Dr. Russell James. Sorry, I got to put
Yes,
the
yes,
doctor
yes,
in there.
yes.
He is my total hero. I think he's absolutely amazing. And he's kicking it off, and I get the main stage after him for an hour and a half on
Oh
Thursday.
my God.
So I'm super
You're gonna do
excited
awesome.
about that.
I love that, and I love that for you. Well, hey, Tiffany, our time is up. We'll put your information in the show notes so anybody who wants to reach out to you, they can possibly do that way. So I'm going to go ahead and just stop the recording. Tiffany, if you don't mind, just stay on and we'll chat a little bit afterwards. Bye,
All right,
everybody.
sounds good.
Thank you.